Atomic proliferation was a sweep in the nations when along came a dude with a monstrous attitude. A giant of a romper, he's the greatest roaring stomper of Japan, or any land. He's a killer, baby.
Godzilla.
He's Godzilla, baby.
Godzilla.
He can stomp Tokyo flat, cause he wears a stomping crown. Even more, much more than that, he can destroy Detroit town. He can lower the bridge on London, then after all his fun's done, you can smell the yucky, slimy stench of death. He will give the French an eyeful as he smacks the Tower Eiffel with his radioactive breath. He will refry Mexico City, nothing he does is pretty. He can smoke 'em out of old Los Angeles. When this monster comes around, better head for higher ground, cause he can crush everything he sees. He don't do drugs, he don't do sex, the Monstersaurus Rex is what he is, what he does. He's a slam bam, watch out man, fire-breathing monster. He goes just where he wants to, he's a killer, baby.
Godzilla.
He's Godzilla, baby.
Godzilla.
Yes, Godzilla is truly king of the monsters. Whence came this crown prince? What is the ancestry that culminated in his reign of terror? Japan has long been considered a place of exotic beauty. The soft lines of Japanese art and the delicacy of Japanese architecture have epitomized beauty to outsiders in the West. But the land of the rising sun erupted with violence in 1941, when Japanese planes attacked the United States territory of Hawaii. After the bombing of Pearl Harbor, Admiral Yamamoto observed, "We have awakened a sleeping giant." Four years of intense fighting culminated in the dropping of 2 atomic bombs on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The Japanese had indeed awakened a sleeping giant. The entire nation of Japan would be forever aware of the destructive power of the atom. In 1954, fears of H-bomb testing in the Pacific produced a new mythology in Japan, the myth of Godzilla. Godzilla the dinosaur lay asleep in an underwater grotto since the primeval age. Reawakened by a hydrogen bomb blast, Godzilla reacted with ferocious anger. The power of the atomic bomb unleashed the power of a prehistoric beast upon the modern world.
Raging through the streets, a rampage of total destruction.
Roaring and loaded with radioactivity, the dinosaur ravaged Tokyo, leveling the city in the same manner that the blast which spawned him would have. Godzilla emerged in the mid-50s as a symbol of the potential evils of atomic power. Japan, famous for its transistors and miniaturization techniques, went the opposite direction with Godzilla. This monstrous dinosaur towered high above the Tokyo skyline, a most ominous sight, the like of which the Japanese hadn't seen since the atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki a decade earlier. Was this creature some sort of cathartic healing device for the Japanese, the only nation in the world to know firsthand the devastation of nuclear war? Whether it healed their war wounds, the film definitely filled their pocketbooks, making a lot of money for the Toho Movie Company. All around the world, audiences lined up to buy tickets to see the one and only Godzilla, the first radioactive lizard in history. Japan had an export that was really making some money.
Armageddon is here today because Godzilla's on the way. Look out, world, you'd better run, cause ready or not, here he comes. He don't do drugs, he don't do sex. A monster Solaris Rex is what he is, and what he does. He's a slam bam, watch out man, fire breathing monster. He goes just where he wants to. He's a killer, baby.
Godzilla.
He's Godzilla, baby.
Godzilla.
Forget vanilla, baby. He is green, he is mean, a destruction machine. He's a killer, baby.
Godzilla.
He's Godzilla, baby.
Godzilla.
He's a killer, baby. He's Godzilla, baby.
Godzilla was the brainchild of producer Tomoyuki Tanaka and director Inoshiro Honda. Serious filmmakers, both of them, over the years they often associated with Akira Kurosawa on many of his illustrious films. This duo set out to make a movie about the biggest dinosaur ever. The expertise of special effects wizard Eiji Tsuburaya came to their aid. Not only did they want him to be big, but they wanted to make Godzilla as realistic as possible. Although the monster was little more than a man in a rubber suit, through intricate sculpturing of the design, the creature appeared believable enough. Use of low camera angles helped to emphasize the illusion of enormity. The starkness of the black and white photography helped to set the somber mood of doom and destruction. The miniature sets through which Godzilla rampaged were meticulously constructed. All the action was filmed using a speeded-up camera, so that, when projected, Godzilla's movements would appear lumbering and heavy. Godzilla was the Americanization of the name Gojira. Actually, the dinosaur originally had no name in the film. The story is that the name Gojira came from a man who worked at the Toho studio. He himself was a tough-looking man, and the name seemed perfect for the dinosaur. The casting of Raymond Burr was another change in the American release of the film. The distributors thought that American audiences wouldn't identify with the film without an American actor playing a lead role. Whether or not Raymond Burr's presence helped the film, the movie certainly gave his career a boost.
Putting this park down until further notice.
What good is that going to do?
All I know is a couple of gorillas around here, and one of them is a killer.
Previously, Burr portrayed mainly villains. With his performance, as news reporter Steve Martin, producers saw the actor in a new light. Shortly thereafter, Burr was cast in the title role of the long-running television series Perry Mason. Altogether, the film artisans triumphed, and the film inspired a raft of sequels. As the economy in Japan flourished and exports were on the rise, Godzilla re-emerged, not as a villain, but as a friendly folk hero and the idol of children. Godzilla games and toys flooded the marketplace. There were comic books and record albums of stories featuring Godzilla and his exploits. But Godzilla didn't just pop out of the sea one day. Even the biggest monsters have to start somewhere. Godzilla's story actually dates back to a time before movies began. To learn the whole story, we must go back in time. Even further than the dawn of man. Before the Ice Age. Almost to the beginning of time itself. Aside from the entertainment they provide in movies, dinosaurs also have a place in history. More accurately, prehistory. Dinosaurs actually walked the Earth millions of centuries ago, during the Mesozoic era, which lasted from about 230 to 65 million years BC. For 165 million years, the dinosaurs ruled the Earth. The word dinosaur is derived from the ancient Greek and literally means terrible lizard. Dinosaurs were monstrous beasts, but not quite as large as the movie makers would have us believe. Although Godzilla towers over all the other movie dinosaurs, had he actually existed, he would have dwarfed the real dinosaurs as well. While it's true that the Tyrannosaurus Rex was bigger than a house, the largest T-Rex was only about 40 feet long. The fossil remains of the largest dinosaur discovered so far belong to the Seismosaurus, measuring about 128 to 170 feet in length. Scientists measure dinosaurs in length, snout to tail. Godzilla measures out at 400 feet, more than twice the size of any known dinosaur. These giant animals ruled over the planet for a long time. Their reign is divided into three periods: the Triassic, the Jurassic, and the Cretaceous. Consequently, many of the most famous dinosaurs lived in completely different eras. Although movie audiences have grown accustomed to battles between such monsters as the Triceratops and the Allosaurus, these animals actually lived millions and millions of years apart. Allosaurus lived during the Jurassic period, while Triceratops came along during the late Cretaceous period. One variety of dinosaur would die out and be replaced by another. Eventually, all the dinosaurs were gone. No one knows for certain what caused the dinosaurs to die out. There are several theories. One theory suggests that a giant meteor collided with the Earth, causing drastic changes in the climate. Other theorists believe the reasons are many and varied, and that the death of the dinosaurs occurred over many centuries. Scientists consider lung cancer an unlikely cause of the demise of dinosaurs. Whatever the reason, dinosaurs and man are separated in time. Although motion pictures show man pitted against dinosaurs, either in prehistory or modern times, there is no proof that the two species ever coexisted. Man did not appear on Earth for about 60 million years after the last of the dinosaurs had died out. Long ago, people believed the bones of dinosaurs to be those of fearsome dragons. Since many dinosaur remains were found at extremely high elevations, people believed that some dragons could fly. Fairy tales and folk legends abound with dragons. From the Germanic stories of Siegfried and the Ring of the Nibelungs to the magical Arabian Nights, the roar of dragons held readers spellbound. Although movie makers delight in exploring the possibilities of confrontations between man and dinosaur, long before motion picture cameras started to roll,
Once upon a time,
storytellers and novelists populated their literary works with prehistoric beasts. Nor was the theatrical stage ignored. In Mozart's opera, The Magic Flute, a ferocious dragon pursues the hero. The dragon does a comic turn, setting the stage for the fun and frolic yet to come. According to British folk legend, a gallant knight by the name of St. George fought a ferocious dragon. He also rescued a fair damsel. This Beauty and the Beast combination continued throughout literature and into the movies as well. Legends of dragons persisted throughout the Middle Ages. Even in later times, sailors would return from long ocean voyages with stories of sea serpents. And even to this day, there are residents of Scotland who believe that a dinosaur lives in Loch Ness. The study of prehistoric life is called paleontology. A relatively recent science, it began about 1822 with the first recorded findings of dinosaur remains in Sussex, England. Paleontologists pointed to the dinosaurs as an explanation for the legendary dragons. Although fossils had undoubtedly been observed earlier, this marked the first scientific study. With that endorsement, serious literature began examining the scientific dinosaurs. As early as his second novel, Jules Verne wrote of a team of explorers meeting dinosaurs on a journey to the center of the Earth. Some 80 years before Michael Crichton's Lost World, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle wrote a novel entitled The Lost World. Doyle, the creator of Master Detective Sherlock Holmes, also created Master Scientist George Challenger. Professor Challenger was the first person to explore a place known as the Lost World. In this instance, it was a remote area of South America, where dinosaurs continued to thrive into the 20th century.
This is the greatest moment of your lives. There it is, directly ahead. A body of land uplifted by volcanic eruption 100 million years ago. The land where monsters live.
These were no DNA clones, as in Jurassic Park. These were descendants of the original dinosaurs. The author of the Tarzan books, Edgar Rice Burroughs, found dinosaurs especially fascinating. He wrote a trilogy of books about the land that time forgot.
This was the day the 20th century met the primeval world face to face. American International presents The Land That Time Forgot, an astounding motion picture based on the book by Edgar Rice Burroughs, creator of Tarzan and the most thrilling science fiction stories ever written. Travel through an underwater passage and discover an awesome prehistoric world. Fight for your life against the terrifying creatures of a lost continent. Come face to face with primitive man and learn the secret of evolution, the land that time forgot. It's action, danger, and adventure on an epic scale. You will never forget Edgar Rice Burroughs' The Land That Time Forgot.
From time to time, Burroughs even had Tarzan battling dinosaurs.
What's the trouble, Mr. Hendricks?
He stole this stallion.
You're under arrest.
We must get that message.
My boy and Cheetah here.
Tarzan, they're gonna kill Connie. Look, Tarzan.
Quick, get our riders. You mustn't escape and reach the Shikamia.
With the advent of motion pictures, filmmakers quickly saw the cinematic possibilities of dragons and dinosaurs. Obviously photogenic, dragons found their niche in the fantasy films of the French movie pioneer Georges Méliès. Dinosaurs also arrived on the motion picture screen early in the history of cinema. The year was 1909. Comic strip artist Winsor McCay created one of the earliest cartoons, Gertie the Dinosaur. Each and every frame of the motion picture had to be hand-drawn and photographed to create the illusion of movement. McCay would stand in front of a motion picture screen and have Gertie perform tricks on the screen. Audiences fell in love with the dinosaur. That love affair has continued through countless variations. After a slow start, things began to pick up for dinosaurs and dragons in the movies. The year 1924 saw 2 major dragons and 2 major slayers. A dragon straight out of the Arabian Nights saw the end of its day at the hands of the thief of Baghdad. Douglas Fairbanks Sr. brandished the sword of the conqueror and then flew off into the Arabian sunset on his flying carpet. The Siegfried legend also came to life on the motion picture screen in 1924. The saga of Siegfried dates back to the Middle Ages. The tales of the great Germanic hero formed the basis for Richard Wagner's operatic cycle, The Ring of the Nibelungs. Noted German director Fritz Lang got the chance to direct his first epic saga with Siegfried and its sequel, Kriemhild's Revenge. Siegfried slays the dragon, Fafnir, and then bathes in the dragon's blood. Legend says that bathing in the blood of a dragon will make the warrior invincible. The technicians utilized a full-scale mechanical dragon to create the fire-breathing Fafnir. This mechanical wonder was 70 feet in length, about half the size of Seismosaurus, the largest actual dinosaur. The enormous puppet required 24 technicians to make it drink, breathe fire, and bleed. Although crude by today's standards, the creature managed to convince audiences in 1924 that the dragon was real. Three-dimensional animation, also referred to as stop motion, gave life to the prehistoric animals of the hysterical 3 ages. Buster Keaton, as an amorous caveman, went out for a Sunday drive in this pre-Flintstone comedy. While he had little trouble taming a huge dinosaur, his ability to win himself a bride left something to be desired. Wallace Beery possessed everything a prehistoric woman could want: brawn and more brawn. By virtue of his outstanding ability, or withstanding ability, Beery won the competition. Three-dimensional animation is much like cartoon animation. Rubber, or sometimes clay models of animals or people, must be moved by hand in between exposures. Stop-motion animation was also employed to bring life to the denizens of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's The Lost World in 1925. Wallace Beery returned for a dinosaur encounter of a different kind, this time as the bearded Professor Challenger, leader of an intrepid group of explorers. The animation was the work of Willis O'Brien. An acknowledged master at his craft, O'Brien began animating clay models around 1914. A few shorts, such as The Dinosaur and the Missing Link, demonstrated the viability of model animation in creating lifelike characters. In RFD 10,000 BC, O'Brien explored the comic possibilities of three-dimensional animation with this novel method of mail delivery. These 1917 creations paved the way for the filming of The Lost World in 1925. O'Brien remained a dominant factor in special effects and three-dimensional animation for the next 3 decades. 70 years later, neophytes in the field would use his work as a visual textbook. Toward the end of The Lost World, a souvenir of the expedition gets out of hand. A rather large souvenir. The Brontosaurus caused traffic problems in downtown London, where the term gridlock was completely unknown. Those were the days. Eight years later, in 1933, O'Brien would once again be called upon to create dinosaurs as well as the title character for the movie King Kong. In the film, which premiered at Grauman's Chinese Theater, Kong was billed as the eighth wonder of the world.
Kong, the eighth wonder of the world!
Because of the ingenuity used in creating the film, many feel the appellation is well-deserved, even after 60 years. Kong pursued lovely Fay Ray from Skull Island to New York City. Obviously, this beast had a big crush on this beauty. King Kong not only kept the RKO studios solvent, it was the sixth highest grossing film of the 1930s. Although Kong dies at the end of the picture, audiences demanded a sequel. Amazingly enough, a sequel, Son of Kong, was forthcoming before the year was out. Having a sequel come out the same year as the original is another of King Kong's feats that has not yet been equaled. But even when the 1930s ended, Kong's movie career was not finished. Fans demanded more. After all, he was the biggest star in monster movies at that time. His followers knew that he was far from perfect. Everyone has a few bad habits. His fans loved Kong just the same. The giant ape met the king of dinosaurs in King Kong vs. Godzilla in 1963. Although made by Toho Productions of Japan, this film was actually the idea of Willis O'Brien. His script, King Kong vs. Frankenstein, made the rounds of producers since the 1930s. Eventually, it was sold to the Japanese, who reworked the story to feature their most famous monster. It was a title bout to be reckoned with. While sports fans clamored for ringside seats when Cassius Clay KO'd Sonny Liston, audiences preferred to see the two monsters slug it out from the comfort of a theater seat.
Godzilla has a brain about this size. He is sheer brute force. While Kong is a thinking animal. His brain is considerably larger, about 10 times the size of this gorilla's skull. Being instinctive rivals, there is no doubt that they will attempt to destroy one another.
King Kong vs. Godzilla scored a knockout. The Japanese continued to feature both monsters in films over the next few years. Kong even battled a giant robot ape in King Kong Escapes. King Kong appeared in a variety of stories totally unrelated to each other or anything that had gone before. After Kong's splendid appearance in the 30s, dinosaurs came from every direction. Comic strips depicted the Stone Age adventures of Alley-Oop and his pet dinosaur. But the creatures weren't limited to the prehistoric era or even the planet Earth. Flash Gordon met up with dinosaurs in outer space. Buster Crabbe, the Olympic swimmer, came to movie prominence as Tarzan of the Apes. But he didn't get to tangle with dinosaurs until he reached the planet Mongo, the domain of Ming the Merciless. It became common practice to use lizards to portray dinosaurs on the motion picture screen. Lizards don't really look like dinosaurs, but they're willing to work for scale. Movie studios figured their unsophisticated audiences wouldn't know the difference. The decade ended and the next one began, with dinosaurs aplenty. Yes, dinosaurs were popular, all right, but not many big stars possessed the courage to co-star with a prehistoric animal.
Well, thanks. Now come on, I'm famished.
An actor had to be crazy to appear on screen with animals, or be an animal and crazy at the same time, like, for instance, Daffy Duck. Oscar winner Chuck Jones directed Daffy Duck and the Dinosaur in 1939. Audiences are still laughing to this day. But the duck had the last laugh. Nobody remembers who played the dinosaur. Rising costs of animation caused Hal Roach to use costumed animals in his prehistoric saga, 1 million BC. Fur coats were draped on elephants, giving them the appearance of woolly mammoths. As for the dinosaurs, lizards doubled for these prehistoric monsters. Little or no makeup was required. However, the results were impressive, and the film received an Oscar nomination for special effects. The animal actors were such a success that footage from the film found its way into countless films since. The movie had no dialogue. The story was told in grunts and pantomime. Much of the success of this technique is attributed to the rumor that D.W. Griffith co-directed the film. Whether or not this is true, the film credits only Hal Roach and Hal Roach Jr. as directors. That same year, Walt Disney and Leopold Stokowski joined forces for Fantasia.
We're all one big happy family here.
Like Gertie, many years before, these were animated cartoon dinosaurs, but their realism was astounding. The Disney artists created a panorama of the evolution of life on Earth during the primeval period. Igor Stravinsky's The Rite of Spring provided the dramatic musical background. Though the film was not successful in 1940, constant reissues turned Fantasia into a popular classic. In 1977, Allegro non troppo satirized Fantasia. The dinosaurs were back in animated form, but this time humor rather than drama was the impetus. Animation dramatized the action when Superman leapt from the comic pages to capture the Arctic Giant in 1942. The Fleischer brothers were faithful to the spirit of Superman, but their knowledge of paleontology left something to be desired.
This time, stay put.
Yes, my lord, and thanks.
Actually, the dinosaur bears more than a passing resemblance to the Reluctant Dragon, being filmed across town at the Disney Studios, the cartoon rival of the Fleischer brothers. 10 years later, the live-action motion picture cameras turned back to the dinosaurs with The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. Loosely based on Ray Bradbury's short story, The Foghorn, the film featured a dinosaur on the loose in the big city. Although a dinosaur in the streets figured prominently in the climax of the original Lost World film, this movie owes more to King Kong. Furthermore, The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, more so than any other film, was both the precursor and the inspiration for Godzilla.
You know what a radioactive isotope is?
No, but if it can be loaded, I can fire it.
I'll load it. Just remember one thing. This is the only isotope of its kind this side of Oak Ridge, so you can't miss.
The special effects were created by stop-motion animator Ray Harryhausen, who had worked closely with Willis O'Brien on the stop-motion classic Mighty Joe Young. Harryhausen and O'Brien again joined forces on The Animal World. O'Brien built the models, while Harryhausen animated. It was their only collaboration on a color film. Dinosaurs only played a supporting role in this documentary produced by Irwin Allen, long before he became the disaster movie king. Robot Monster could be found at the other end of the special effects spectrum, although who would want to find it will forever remain a mystery. The ape in the diving helmet came from outer space. The dinosaurs came from stock footage. The plot came from nowhere and went nowhere. The only thing frightening about this film is the thought that anyone could have taken it seriously.
There is no escape from me. Fool humans, there is no escape.
Godzilla came along the following year, just in the nick of time.
Wiping out a city of 6 million in a holocaust of flames.
Godzilla, the monstrous creation of Japanese film technology, has wreaked havoc across movie screens for almost half a century. As a star of films, television, and even comic books, he's the most famous prehistoric animal of all time.
Godzilla has a brain about this size. He is sheer brute force.
This monster put monstrous into the film vocabulary. Godzilla is bigger and more destructive than any of his counterparts. At 400 feet in height, he towers over all other movie monsters in both size and strength, and his breath can literally stop a clock, even Big Ben.
Godzilla seems to be winning.